I'm not even gonna lie, this might be one of the weirdest twists we've seen in the entire Drake versus Kendrick situation so far. 'Cause somehow, Kendrick Lamar is getting attacked online for giving back to his own community. Yeah, read that again. Not for a diss track, not for sneak dissing, not for saying something controversial. People are literally crashing out online because Kendrick showed love to the city. And now Drake fans are calling the whole thing fake, performative, and even damage control. But hold on, because the deeper you look into this situation, the stranger it actually gets. See, at first everybody thought this was just another normal internet fan war. Stans arguing, Twitter doing Twitter things. Nothing new. But then receipts started surfacing, old clips started resurfacing, and suddenly people noticed something uncomfortable. This backlash against Kendrick didn't really start organically. It exploded almost instantly. Same talking points, same narratives, same accusations repeated everywhere at the exact same time. And now some fans genuinely believe there's a coordinated effort happening online to slowly shift public opinion against Kendrick after months of Drake taking non-stop hits during the beef. That's where this story gets dangerous. Because whether you support Drake or Kendrick, one thing is undeniable. The energy online has changed recently. A few months ago, Kendrick could do no wrong on the internet. Now, every single move he makes gets picked apart instantly. Even charity, even community work, even giving back. And honestly, that's not normal. What really caught my attention is how fast certain hip-hop pages and fan accounts flipped the narrative. Instead of focusing on what Kendrick actually did, people immediately started questioning his intentions. Almost like the goal wasn't discussion anymore, it was reputation damage. And if you think this is just social media, you're missing the bigger picture completely. Because in 2026, controlling perception is the real rap battle. And what makes this whole thing feel so uncomfortable is the fact that Kendrick wasn't even trying to go viral when this started. That's the detail people keep missing. This wasn't some album rollout stunt with dramatic trailers and mysterious countdowns. This was Kendrick showing up for the community, giving back, and moving the same way he's moved for years. Quiet, controlled, low-key. But somehow the internet flipped the entire conversation upside down within hours. Instead of people talking about the actual event, suddenly timelines were flooded with accusations, sarcasm, and people calling the whole thing fake activism. And I'm sitting there thinking, since when did helping your own city become controversial in hip-hop? But then I started paying attention to how the backlash spread, and honestly, that's where things started looking weird to me. Because this didn't move like normal criticism. Usually when social media reacts naturally, you see mixed conversations happening at once. Different opinions, different angles. But this felt coordinated. Almost like certain accounts were waiting for Kendrick to do literally anything public so they could instantly spin it negative. Same phrases everywhere. Same jokes. Same narrative repeated over and over again. Kendrick only does this for PR. Kendrick trying to repair his image. Kendrick scared of Drake's comeback. And the craziest part? Most of the people repeating it weren't even talking about the actual community work itself. That tells you this stopped being about charity immediately. This became about narrative warfare. And if you think I'm exaggerating, look at the timing. Ever since the Drake and Kendrick battle cooled down publicly, there's been this strange shift happening online where certain fanbases seem obsessed with reclaiming momentum psychologically. Almost like the battle never really ended, it just moved away from music and into perception control. Every move Kendrick makes now gets analyzed through a completely different lens than before. A few months ago, people treated him like the untouchable hero of hip-hop. Now suddenly every action comes with suspicion attached to it automatically. And honestly, I think some Drake fans realized something important after the beef. They may have lost the battle musically in the eyes of the public, but they can still influence the culture conversation online if they stay loud enough long enough. That's why this moment matters more than people think. Because attacking Kendrick for giving back isn't really about the charity itself. It's about weakening the image Kendrick built during the battle. Think about it. Kendrick's entire advantage during the beef came from authenticity, morality, integrity. People believed him because he felt genuine compared to Drake's polished superstar image. So if critics can somehow convince audiences that Kendrick is also performative, also strategic, also calculating for public approval, then suddenly the moral gap between them starts shrinking. That's the real game happening right now, and I don't think casual fans fully realize it yet. What's even crazier is watching certain media pages subtly fuel the situation without saying it directly. You'll notice headlines changing tone slowly, comment sections getting pushed toward negativity intentionally, clips getting reposted without context, because negativity drives engagement better than positivity every single time. A rapper donating to the community peacefully doesn't trend the same way controversy does. But if you frame that same act as fake or manipulative, suddenly everybody starts arguing nonstop. More clicks, more reposts, more outrage. The algorithm loves division, and unfortunately, fanbases know that now. That's why this entire atmosphere around hip-hop feels different lately. Less about music, more about psychological dominance online. Fans aren't just defending artists anymore. They're fighting to control public perception like political campaign teams. And Drake's fanbase especially became extremely aggressive after spending months watching him get mocked across the internet. Some of them genuinely feel like the culture turned against Drake unfairly, so now every Kendrick moment becomes a target automatically. But here's the irony nobody's talking about. The harder people try to paint Kendrick as fake, the more they accidentally reinforce how powerful his image actually became during the beef. Think about it carefully. Nobody spends this much energy trying to damage somebody's reputation, unless that reputation still holds massive influence culturally. If Kendrick truly wasn't a threat anymore, people wouldn't care enough to attack community work in the first place. The emotional reaction itself proves he still controls attention at a dangerous level. And maybe that's what's making this situation spiral so aggressively online right now. Because deep down, both fan bases understand something uncomfortable. This rivalry still isn't over emotionally. Not even close. The diss track stopped, sure. But the battle for cultural dominance? That's still happening every single day the internet wakes up. And the more people keep arguing about this online, the more obvious it becomes that something shifted after the Drake and Kendrick battle emotionally. Because before all of this happened, there used to be certain things hip-hop fans respected automatically. Giving back to your city was one of them. Showing love to your community was one of them. Supporting local families, schools, neighborhoods, those things usually stayed above internet warfare. But now, somehow even charity became another battlefield. And honestly, that says a lot about where rap culture is heading right now. Because let's really break this down carefully. Kendrick didn't hop online screaming for attention. He didn't announce some giant press run trying to trend for 24 hours. Most of the footage spreading around came from other people posting it first. Community members, fans, local pages. But the second those clips started circulating, the backlash appeared almost instantly. Not gradually, instantly. And what caught people off guard was how aggressive some of the reactions became. We're talking about people mocking donations, mocking appearances, mocking community outreach itself. At one point, I genuinely had to stop and ask myself, are people even angry about Kendrick anymore? Or are they just addicted to conflict now? Because there's a difference. And that difference matters. What's happening now feels less like genuine criticism and more like emotional retaliation from fanbases still stuck in the aftermath of the beef. Drake supporters spent months watching social media clown their favorite artist nonstop. Every timeline felt anti-Drake. Every viral joke targeted Drake. Every major hip-hop conversation painted Kendrick as the undisputed winner culturally. That kind of humiliation doesn't just disappear overnight online. Fanbases remember that stuff. They carry it emotionally. So now every Kendrick moment becomes an opportunity to push back, even if the situation itself has nothing to do with rap beef directly. That's why the reaction started feeling so personal. And honestly, I think Kendrick's image is exactly what's triggering people right now. Because whether you love him or hate him, Kendrick still carries this reputation of authenticity in hip-hop that few artists have. People believe him when he talks about community. They believe him when he speaks on culture. That credibility became one of the biggest weapons he had during the battle against Drake. So naturally, critics are now trying to attack that specifically. Not his music necessarily. His image. His intentions. His morality. And that strategy makes sense if you think about it from a fan war perspective. If you can convince audiences Kendrick is performing authenticity instead of living it genuinely, suddenly the emotional advantage he held starts weakening. Suddenly the conversation shifts from Kendrick versus Drake into they're both manipulative in different ways. That's the goal for a lot of people online right now, whether they realize it consciously or not. But here's where things get really strange. The backlash itself may actually be helping Kendrick more than hurting him. Seriously. Because normal people outside stan culture are looking at this situation completely differently. A lot of casual audiences see the attacks and think they look excessive, weird even. And once internet behavior starts looking obsessive instead of organic, public sympathy usually shifts fast. Especially in hip-hop, where authenticity and community respect still matter emotionally to fans in real life. That's why this whole thing feels risky for everybody involved. Because the internet always pushes conflict too far eventually. And once people feel like somebody's being unfairly targeted nonstop, backlash against the backlash starts building quietly underneath the surface. I've already started noticing it too. More fans questioning why Kendrick gets criticized for literally everything now. More people asking why every positive moment immediately turns negative online. More people noticing how certain narratives spread suspiciously fast across multiple platforms at once. And honestly, that's dangerous for fanbases trying to control perception aggressively, because audiences are smarter now than they used to be. They recognize coordinated outrage faster than before, especially after years of watching social media manipulate narratives around celebrities, politics, sports, everything. People know how online dogpiling works now, so when criticism starts feeling forced instead of natural, the entire strategy can backfire badly. Which brings us back to Drake again, because whether fans admit it or not, his name still hangs over every Kendrick conversation like a shadow right now. That battle changed hip-hop permanently. Every public move from either side gets viewed through that lens automatically now. Kendrick could literally donate to schools and somehow people still connect it back to Drake emotionally. That's how deep this rivalry embedded itself into internet culture. And maybe that's the craziest thing about all of this. The music stopped months ago, but mentally, emotionally, culturally, people are still fighting every single day online like the war never ended at all. And the longer that energy keeps growing, the uglier this whole situation could become for everybody involved. And the deeper this whole thing goes, the more it starts exposing something people really don't want to admit about modern hip-hop culture. Fans are no longer reacting to reality first. They're reacting to narratives first. And once a narrative gets locked into people's minds online, it almost doesn't matter what actually happens anymore. Everything becomes filtered through emotion, loyalty, and agenda. That's exactly what's happening with Kendrick right now. Because if we're being completely honest, the same people accusing Kendrick of fake activism would probably be praising another artist for doing half the amount of community work. But because Kendrick became the symbolic face of Drake's biggest public loss culturally, every move he makes now comes with extra resentment attached to it automatically. And that resentment has been building quietly for months underneath the surface. You can feel it. The jokes are sharper now. The criticism feels more personal now. Even neutral conversations somehow turn hostile instantly. And honestly, I think a lot of Drake fans stopped caring about proving Drake won musically a long time ago. Now it feels more like they want to emotionally dismantle Kendrick's image piece by piece online. Almost like revenge for how aggressively Drake got clowned during the height of the beef. But here's the problem with that strategy. The internet always takes things too far eventually. Always. First people laugh. Then people pile on. Then suddenly it stops feeling funny and starts feeling obsessive. That's the stage this whole situation is slowly entering now. Because attacking somebody over diss tracks is one thing. Attacking somebody for supporting their own community? That hits different emotionally for regular people watching from the outside. And I think some fan bases underestimated how weird that would look publicly. Especially because Kendrick's entire brand has always been tied to community, culture, and social awareness. This isn't some random personality shift he invented after the Drake battle. Kendrick's been moving like this since the beginning of his career. That's why a lot of casual fans are looking at the backlash confused like, wait, what exactly are people mad about here? And the lack of a clear answer makes the situation even messier. Because the criticism keeps changing depending on the day. One minute people say Kendrick is trying too hard. The next minute they say he doesn't do enough. Then they say he's performing for cameras. But when old footage surfaces showing he's been helping communities quietly for years, suddenly the goalposts move again. That inconsistency is what's making more people suspicious about the outrage itself. And trust me, Kendrick's team is probably watching all of this very carefully. Because whether fans realize it or not, perception management matters more than ever now in hip-hop. We live in an era where public opinion changes faster than music charts. One viral clip can reshape somebody's reputation overnight. One coordinated narrative can dominate timelines for weeks. And the smartest artists understand that controlling emotion online matters almost as much as controlling the music itself. That's why this entire situation feels bigger than charity drama. This is about identity, about influence, about who gets to represent authenticity in rap culture moving forward. And I genuinely believe that scares people more than they want to admit. Because if Kendrick keeps maintaining that image despite nonstop criticism, then it strengthens everything he represented during the Drake battle even more. It reinforces the idea that people still trust him culturally, morally, emotionally, and for Drake supporters trying to shift the conversation back in Drake's favor, that becomes frustrating fast. Especially because Drake himself hasn't really gone nuclear publicly during any of this. That silence matters a lot. Because while fanbases are destroying each other online daily, Drake stays relatively calm publicly. And honestly, that strategy may be smarter than people realize. The less emotional he appears, the more his fans feel motivated to fight for him online themselves. Meanwhile, Kendrick keeps moving quietly in real life while chaos explodes around him digitally. That contrast is fascinating. One side dominates through visibility and internet presence. The other side dominates through symbolism and cultural respect. And now those two forces are crashing into each other constantly online every single day. Which is why this doesn't feel temporary anymore. This feels like the beginning of a permanent split inside hip-hop fandom itself. A split between people who value celebrity power and people who value cultural authenticity. A split between internet narratives and real-world impact. A split between performance and perception. And honestly, I don't think either side fully realizes how toxic this could eventually become if things keep escalating emotionally the way they are right now. Because once fanbases stop seeing artists as human beings and start treating them like political teams, the conversation stops being about music completely. And that's exactly where hip-hop culture seems to be heading right now. And honestly, I think this whole situation exposed something way bigger than Kendrick versus Drake. It exposed how addicted the internet became to tearing people down no matter what they do. Because think about how insane this sounds when you say it out loud. A rapper gives back to his city, supports the community, shows love to people in real life, and somehow the internet turns that into controversy within hours. That's crazy. And the scary part is a lot of people online don't even realize they're participating in it anymore. The outrage cycle became automatic. Somebody posts something positive, fanbases immediately search for hidden motives, then social media algorithms push the most negative reactions to the top because anger gets more engagement than respect ever will. That's the machine now, and Kendrick just walked directly into it. But here's why this situation feels different from normal celebrity backlash. Kendrick's image was built specifically around sincerity. That's why people are attacking it so aggressively now. Because when an artist builds their reputation around luxury, clout, and popularity, criticism usually stays surface level. But when an artist builds their identity around morality, culture, and authenticity, people start trying to expose them emotionally instead. The goal becomes proving they're secretly fake underneath the image. That's exactly what's happening online right now. And honestly, I think some Drake supporters see this as their opportunity to finally balance the scoreboard emotionally after months of feeling culturally overwhelmed during the beef. Because whether people admit it or not, Drake took brutal public damage online. Memes everywhere. Diss records everywhere. Celebrities dancing to Not Like Us. The internet turned the entire thing into a public humiliation campaign at one point. Fanbases don't forget moments like that. They wait. And eventually they push back. That's why this backlash against Kendrick feels so emotionally charged. It's not really about one community event. It's months of resentment exploding through one moment. The giving back situation just became the spark. But the internet may have overplayed its hand this time, because regular people outside hardcore stan culture are starting to notice how extreme things are getting. You can literally watch the confusion spreading in comment sections now. Some people are asking genuine questions like, wait, why are people angry at this? And once casual audiences start questioning the outrage itself, the narrative becomes unstable fast. That's where things start getting dangerous online. Because outrage only works when the majority agrees emotionally. The second people start feeling manipulated, sympathy shifts immediately. And Kendrick's silence throughout all of this is making the situation even stranger. Notice something important. Kendrick isn't crashing out online defending himself constantly. No endless ranting. No emotional interviews. No desperate responses to fan pages. He just keeps moving quietly while the internet argues around him. And whether intentional or not, that silence makes the backlash look even louder and more chaotic by comparison. Meanwhile, Drake's fanbase keeps pushing aggressively online, trying to reclaim narrative control after months of taking losses publicly. And now we've reached this weird moment where both sides are fighting completely different battles. Kendrick's side keeps focusing on authenticity, community, and cultural respect. Drake's side keeps focusing on perception, hypocrisy, and internet influence. And social media algorithms are feeding both sides nonstop because conflict is profitable now. That's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. The platforms benefit from fan wars staying toxic forever. More engagement, more reposts, more clips, more outrage, more division. The angrier people get, the more the algorithm rewards the chaos, which means this entire situation probably isn't cooling down anytime soon. Especially because there's another layer underneath all this people barely talk about. Fear. Not fear from Kendrick. Not fear from Drake. Fear from the fanbases themselves. Because deep down, both sides are terrified the public conversation could flip unexpectedly at any moment. Kendrick fans fear Drake rebuilding cultural momentum slowly. Drake fans fear Kendrick remaining untouchable morally despite everything. So every little moment becomes overanalyzed emotionally like it's life or death for their favorite artist's legacy. And that pressure is making everybody react irrationally now. Even charity becomes suspicious. Even silence becomes suspicious. Even giving back becomes controversial. That's how warped internet culture became around this rivalry. And honestly, I think we're watching hip-hop enter a completely different era now. An era where artists don't just battle with music anymore. They battle with perception campaigns, fan armies, viral narratives, psychological warfare online. The songs may have stopped, but the internet war never did. And if this level of tension keeps building every time Kendrick or Drake breathes publicly, then trust me, the next major moment between these fanbases is probably going to explode way bigger than people expect. But now I really want to know what you think about this whole situation. Did Drake fans take things way too far attacking Kendrick over community work? Or do you think people are finally starting to question Kendrick's image for the first time? Because honestly, the internet feels different right now. The energy around Kendrick changed. The energy around Drake changed. And somehow even positive moments in hip-hop are turning into war zones online overnight. That should probably concern everybody. So drop your real opinion in the comments. No filters, no stan politics. I'm genuinely curious where people stand now because this conversation is getting bigger than music at this point. And also tell me this, do you think the Drake versus Kendrick battle actually ended? Or are fanbases keeping the war alive because neither side wants to lose control of the culture conversation? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels far from over. Make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on, and stay locked in because the second more reactions, hidden details, or industry responses start surfacing, we're breaking all of it down immediately. And trust me, the next twist in this story might be even crazier than this one.